What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing another video today. The Major 2 qualifiers are starting here shortly. I'm recording this video on Wednesday. They start Friday afternoon, and I wanted to put together a video. I'm going to split this actually into two because we have 12 CDL teams. Kind of summarizing sort of how each team did a little bit in Major 1 and things they should really focus on in Major 2. So for this video, the first video, we're going to do the bottom 6 teams, so the 4 teams that did not get through the group stage in Major 1, plus the teams that got 7th and 8th. So let's dive in and break some keys to victory, so to speak, for all of these teams. So I think first up, we're going to talk about the 4 teams that did not get through the group stage. So we're going to start off with Boston Breach, who I know kind of at Major 1, they had a little bit of an unfortunate incident with Big Wake, aka Awakening, getting sick on the first day of the event. I think they definitely affected their performance, and obviously that meant that they lost a tough game 5 to Elevate, and they lost to Vegas in 5 as well. So the 2 series that they lost on land were pretty close, and I think their overall win and loss map record kind of reflects that. And there's a lot to like from how Boston played through parts of Major 1. They got off to a really hot start. They beat FaZe finally. Beat Seattle, and overall, like, they had a couple of really good maps in their pool. Fortress 4-1, a lot to like about that. 3-0 in Hotel, Hardpoint. In terms of like S&D stats, they do really good at. Their post plant percentage is very good. I believe they're either like second or first in that category. And then, as you can probably see here, in terms of like how Hardpoint played out for them across the 12 maps they played in Major 1, pretty close. They're scoring a lot of points, and they are giving up a lot of points, but they're always in the maps, which is what you like to see out of the Boston team. What I think they're clearly going to need to work on is a couple of things. One is, obviously, we highlight this 2-0 start. Well, since then, they lost to New York, they lost to LAG, and then obviously the 2 L's at land. So they're on a little bit of a 4-series slide. And this is since the M4 GA that happened after week 1. So I think there's a lot of people in the community that are calling them sort of M4 stars. I don't really buy that. You know, there was 2 weeks of qualifiers in the land. They kind of mess up those last 2 weeks, so people are just kind of connecting the dots, but they don't need to be connected. But I do think they're going to go ahead and grab at least 1 W during this Major 2 qualifier cycle. And you see the teams that they are going to play here between a couple of these, especially like Florida and Vegas. I think they can grab some W's. So 2 more things I think they need to work on. First off, this 0-3 record in game at 5s is not ideal, so something to keep an eye on as we see them go through this Major 2 cycle and they play their 5 games online. Can they grab a win on the board if they do get to game 5? Right now, they're sitting on a goose egg. And I think the last thing for me with Boston, and this is more of sort of a major, like, kind of macro point with them, is I think on paper they're a good team. I just don't know at the moment if this is a team that's destined to always be a top 6, top 8, occasional top 4 placement team, or are they going to find one of these major cycles, break out, and get there to the grand finals on a Sunday? We haven't seen that version of Boston just yet, and I know this is a young team, and they literally just built the beginnings of this roster last season when they bought that spot from Chicago. I think in particular, if they want to get there, I want to highlight the 2 SMG players, Nero and Reese. Overall numbers not too bad in Hardpoint, but as you can see here from S&D, not that good in the S&D game mode, and Reese had a little bit of a struggle one in Control. I think if this team wants to get to that, you know, Seattle, New York, FaZe, Toronto level, they're going to need to see their sub players step up and really have a very good cycle. So that's kind of my summary of Boston. I like their team. Again, we take a look at their schedule for Major 2, and it's not bad. The matches of Florida and Vegas, I think they should be able to grab 2 W's. And then from there, if they can just win one of the matches between Thieves, OpTic, and ROKKR, they should be good value to make it to winner's bracket for Major 2. Continuing our series on teams that did not get out of groups, and also teams that are on loser on map series loss records at the moment. Let's talk about the London Royal Ravens, another team that got off also to a 2-0 start in the qualifiers. They beat New York and LAG, and then I believe since then they've lost 4 series, 5 if you count that tiebreaker match they played against LA Thieves on land. So not a particularly good Major 1 cycle for London. And honestly, you look at the map records, and there's not a lot to write home about. Game mode records, you know, decent, but not a lot to write home about. I think Control is probably their weakest game mode right now. They played a lot of Hotel, but it looks like they didn't really play any Fortress Control, which is interesting. And it kind of makes sense if you look at their team page here on the Breaking Point website. They vetoed Fortress Control in 3 of the series they played, so there you go. I also think of things to work on. They did not play a single lick of Embassy S&D. That was an auto Vita for them, as you can see from the 6 number there. And not to pile on sort of the S&D woes, but they were not a good offensive team in S&D. I believe in terms of first ball percentage, they were near the bottom or at the bottom of that. So I think for me, I look at their map records. And again, this is a team that's on a bit of an L streak, but unlike Boston, they also made a roster change. They got scraps coming in, going to shuffle roles a little bit. They might be a little bit of a new look team now with this new meta and new squad. So we'll see kind of where the map pool falls. But, you know, for me, I think they can kind of if they can turn a corner and search, because they look like a really good S&D team to start, because I believe they won like 3 searches in a row to start the season. That would be really good for them. And I think for what it's worth, if we look at some of the players on the roster, I do think that, like, in particular, we should talk about how good Asim played in Major 1. 1.12 KD in hardpoint, 1 in search, and a 109 in control. So a lot to like. If you are a London fan, getting Asim over from LAG squad seems like a play, but I do think you need to see other players on this team step up. I like what we saw from Nasty, but we need a little bit more from Trade, the 0.85 in SD. I don't think really going to cut it. His game mode, his respawn KDs 128 and a 101 in those game modes are good. I don't really like this 19.5 number, kills per 10, 38 and engagements per 10 on hardpoint. He needs to step it up a little bit there. Give him the meta switch, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that sort of practice Major 1 with the meta switch kind of screwed them. But with scraps coming in, let's see how this team does. And I think also, like Boston, they play Florida and Vegas in Major 2 cycles. So those are winnable games. I think Thieves, ROKKR, and Ultra are going to be very tricky. So I see a path to 2, maybe 3 wins here for London. 2 might be enough to get them in bracket. We will see how things break down, but an opportunity for rebound here for London. If they do not have a good Major 2 cycle, though, I could see with the rumors of Harry and Gizmo being involved with this organization at maybe a substitute level, that if they don't have another good Major cycle, they might make further changes to the starting lineup for London. All right, next up we have OpTic Texas, another team making a roster change. Unfortunately, Dashi has been sent to the bench, and up comes Kyler. Obviously for OpTic, kind of a weird Major 1. I mean, they came up really short against their boogeyman on land. Apparently is still Florida, and they were not able to get out of groups because they just couldn't figure Florida out of the land. It's a really weird one to me. Don't quite understand that, but there's, still a lot to like out of, I think, OpTic's performance at Major 1. Some things I think that are their strong points. They've got some really good maps that they're solid at in Hardpoint, Hotel, and Mercado, combined 6 and 1, which you like to see. What you don't like to see, though, is the 0 and 2 spot, 0 and 1 on Fortress and Embassy, respectively. So a little bit of some funkiness with their hardpoint map pool, but I think things will change now with Kyler on the team. So I don't want to take away too much on the map pool with this team, because we don't know what maps they're good and bad at now, because they brought Kyler in and they moved Set to a flex, they moved Illy to a main. So like roles and new players, completely different look now. I think the other thing famously with this team is that they absolutely had a habit, especially on that Mercado S&D, which you see the 1-3 record, of blowing those maps when they had opportunities to close out rounds, just not converting post plants, not getting the bomb down, not working your numbers. I think definitely S&D will need to be a focus for the squad, a recipe for success, considering now we are in an era where your good hardpoint teams are winning 55, 53% of the time. That's where we were at kind of last year. So can't count on being hardpoint stars. You need to be good at S&D and good as control, really all 3 game modes, to excel and win events. In terms of individual performances, though, I think Seth had a pretty good Major 1 cycle. As you see these stats in Respawn, 1 in S&D, a 106 in total. In control, a lot to like. I know Ant stats look really good. The 108, the 0.8 in S&D, no, but the 1 in hardpoint. His land stats, though, when they went to the event, were not good. I think, again, we need to kind of see where this team lands at in terms of the teamwork and how they work with this new pickup, because I can kind of see from these numbers, the kills per 10, the engagements, the pacing was not great for this team in Respawn. Subs and ARs on like a completely different level of engagements. And we get to like another video on kind of tomorrow's video, when we talk about some of the better teams. You'll see that like maybe 10 engagement per 10 is pretty flat for some of the better teams. Sub or AR, everybody's getting in the action with these teams that really struggled at Major 1. Couldn't figure out that connective issue between the 2 groups. So I'm going to kind of reserve judgment on this OpTic team for now. It's a work in progress. Let's see what this Kyler pickup does for them. If we take a look really quickly at their schedule for Major 2, they're going to start off against Boston on Sunday. They've got Seattle, Toronto, Legion, and FaZe. I see probably 2 wins in here, potentially, maybe 3 if they can kind of get one here. They should be good value to make winners, this team. I like the potential upside here. Maybe 4 wins. They can get it done. We shall see. All right, last of our teams that did not make it out of groups, we've got the LA Guerrillas. And like 2 of the other teams we've talked about in the group of these teams that finished top 16, top 18, something like that, they made a roster change. They've actually completely kind of squad wiped their lineup. Alex is the only person left. Now they're going to run a lineup of Arseeds, Assault, Exceed, and Joe Deceive. So they've taken the LEG Academy team, took 3 players, put Alec on it, and called it a day. So when I talk about what they did well and what they need to fix, keep in mind this, as far as even more so than, say, London and OpTic, like this seems completely new. So might need to throw a lot of this out the window. First off, their old team was horrific in hardpoint. I mean that in every sense of the word. I mean, they really struggled to score points in hardpoint. They were averaging 169 per map. For reference, like the next closest pro team to that was somewhere around the 211 to 212 range, I believe. So not great. And I think that's pretty much why, or one of the reasons why they really blew up this team. That being said, though, the actual original squad was not that bad in search. They had some good maps. Asilo Control, or sorry, Asilo S&D was pretty good for them. Actually only dropped like 2 rounds in total, I think, on Asilo in the 2 maps they played. And actually on offense, they were actually converting their first bloods very well. I think they were near the top on that. And I actually don't know if they lost any rounds in S&D. I don't need to double check on that. They're also good at Hydra Hardpoint, which is definitely a bright spot there. But the rest of the map pool and really their performance in Major Run, nothing to write home about. And again, you look at the slaying for this team and you can see why they blew this up, because this is not good. This is also for the most part not good. And yeah. So ideally, look, the move to bring in Assault, Exceed, and Joe Deceives, I think definitely improves the slaying and definitely improves the hardpoint, because the LG Academy team was pretty good at the game mode. Jury's out on how this is going to affect their control on S&D game, but this LG team, more so than the other squads in the 3 we've talked about outside this one so far, like this team is a work in progress. I don't know yet if this new squad is going to work. Obviously, DiamondCon could definitely come in the mix on their LG Academy team if they want to rotate another AR. The only other thing for them too is their Major 2 cycle is interesting. They start off against Florida. I would think that it's a winnable game for them, but they have to play Thebes. They have to play FaZe. They have to play Toronto. I think those are tough matchups. The ROKKR match will be really, really key for them. Unfortunately for LAG, someone's got to be in the bottom 4 in this major qualifier cycle. I see potentially 2 wins in here, but I think it's gonna be really tough for these guys. Let's see if they can grab one of the bottom seeds during this qualifier stage. But playing from California, new look squad, I'm still think there's some work to do with this team. I don't really feel super confident they're gonna get a top 8 seed going into Major 2. All right, now we are on to the last 2 teams for this video. Those are gonna be the squads, Minnesota and Florida, that finished top 7, top 8 at the Major. Let's start with Minnesota. Amongst, I think, a number of teams of the 12 teams in the league, this is one of the teams that I think I have my eye on probably the most. They're sort of a team that's in a weird spot. I expected better of them in the Major 1 cycle, but not everybody can finish top 6, top 8. And the issue I think that they're going to potentially face here is, Toronto looks really good. Obviously, we expect FaZe to always be there or thereabouts. New York just won an event. Seattle looked very good. LA Thieves probably will start playing a little bit better. OpTic will start playing a little bit better. What about Boston? There's only so many teams that can fit in the top 6, top 8, go in a champs box. And I'm a little worried that this, all-star-ish Minnesota lineup they spent a lot of money on in the offseason might be kind of on the outside of that top 8. So I think this is a big qualifier for them. If they can get a good placing at this one, I think they really need a top 6 or a top 4 placing. I feel a lot better. But if it's another top 8 or lower for this Minnesota team, they're going to be in a really problem spot going into the middle of the season. And I think there's a couple of sort of bright spots for the squad. The search record is nothing good to write home about, because they really struggled S&D once they got to land, but online they actually look pretty good. And first blood 1 percentage across the board is actually pretty good for them, I believe. And obviously, if we take a look at their control record, CDL Control 5-0. Let's be honest, it's probably like 4-1 because of the OpTic situation in the beginning of the season. Pretty good, their control record, I got to be honest. So they have that bright spot there, but once again with these ROKKR teams, nothing to write home about in hardpoint, man. Like I need to see a little bit more from the team in that game mode. And if they're not winning hard points, they got to be winning searches. And the 0-3 Atlanta search was not ideal. And apparently, diving further into the stats, their offensive win percentage, S&D is not good. I believe it's bottom of the league. So need to work on that in terms of offensive rounds. Another thing too for Minnesota, and this has been kind of a running theme with some teams from the North for a while now, need to do better in game ones. Winning 3 of the 9 is not good. Need to get off to a better start. They had problems with this in past years in Minnesota. Not sure what the deal is, but give yourself a better chance in those game ones. We can get towards 40s, 50% here. It'll kind of help you out. You see kind of the issue here. If you're not really winning first or second game mode at a 50% clip, you're going to be in a tough part. They're grinding out the series though when we get to later on, which is good, but they're getting off to slow starts. They did lose the only game 5 that they played so far this season. Looking at stats is not too bad. Interestingly enough, it looks like they have mostly a full auto veto in control vetoing hotel, which is interesting. A lot of teams like playing hotel. I guess not for Minnesota. And they also got rid of Mercado S&D a bunch as well, it looks like. And Mercado hardpoint. So map pool may be a little shallow for Minnesota looking at these vetoes, to be honest. Let's see how they set up in Major 2. Slaying numbers are not too bad. Engagement numbers are not too bad. Overall slaying in S&D not that good. I think this Minnesota team should be better than how they placed. They've got real talent in their roster. I love how that sub duo should play, but this team needs to rebound. They've got an interesting Major 2 qualifier cycle. They're going to start off against Boston, big match earlier on in the week. They've got London, FaZe, LAG, and Seattle. So I think if you're Minnesota, this is not a bad draw. I think the Boston match is a big match. If you can get off to a 1-0 start, play a London team that's still a work in progress, LAG team a work in progress, and you got FaZe in Seattle. I see a path to 2 or 3 wins here. Maybe 4 if you can get a really good start online. We see that from Minnesota teams. They've sometimes figured out these online qualifiers and they get hot and then they get to land. It's a little bit mixed. We saw that a lot last year. I think Minnesota should be valued to get in the top 8. And they really need to start in winners. If this team is one of those bottom feeder teams in the online cycle, it's going to be a lot of pressure, I think, externally on this team to perform, because again, they're now sitting outside of, I think, where you want to be, considering the strength of other squads and the fact that I expect some other squads to rebound. 40 points is not bad. Puts them in a pretty good spot for champs qualification, but conceptually with a lot of teams, I think starting to get better. OpTic and Boston probably getting better placings. Is Minnesota a top 6 or top 8 team? Or are they going to once again not qualify for champs? We shall see. And when we talk about Minnesota and can they qualify for champs or not, it's because of teams like this, the Florida Mutineers, that people always discount, like myself. And somehow, some way, this team finds a way to grind out results major by major and make things very interesting in overall qualification, just from event to event standpoint. Like Florida's always been a sort of gritty team that can grind out results. They're not the most talented squad in the CDL. The 4-12 record in hardpoint is the worst in the league. And, we all expect them to be bad in that game mode. I did not expect them to be that bad win percentage wise. Although they played a lot of maps really close. The 0-4 record on Mercado, not ideal. 1-3 on Embassy, not ideal. So need to see them improve on those maps. Control, they did have an auto veto in Control. They did not play Fortress. Overall record in Control, actually pretty good. Round split, pretty good in Control as well. Let's see if they can figure out how to become a very good Control team. Because I like their S&D upside. They can be the 2, 3, 5 stars if they can really figure out their Control path to win. They do need to get a little bit better in hardpoint. And on the S&D front as well, I should note that they were 4-1 in round 11s in the Major 1 cycle. So their S&Ds were going the distance. They were winning those round 11s. So I like their strength in S&D. Maybe not so much on Embassy, but Asilo in Mercado, 5-0, a combine about those maps. A lot to like if you're Florida. And we can look at the slaying numbers, but they're going to be brutal because the hard point numbers are not great, especially from their sub players, and their control numbers are all over the place, but they were pretty solid in control, at least in Major 1. So Florida's a weird team to me, bro. Like, I don't know if they're always going to be a consistent top 8 pick. They do this thing, man. They're going to take scalps. They're going to grind out these series and be your 2, 3, 5 stars. I just don't know if that's a consistent way to win. We talk about where is Dashy going to go next? What's going to happen after Major 2 roster mania? Let's see if this team makes it to the Major 3 cycle intact, but I can see this team making changes after this major. And let's talk about their path at this major qualifier. They will start off against LAG, play Toronto, New York, London, and Boston. I actually think that this is a very good schedule for Florida. They avoid a number of teams that I think are really good online. So I think this is actually pretty winnable for Florida and might be an interesting thing to know for a couple of like the better teams. When we start doing the video tomorrow, you'll see teams like Toronto, New York FaZe have harder schedules. I think for Florida, like there's some good path to wins here. You know what I mean? LAG, new look team, London, new look team. You know, the Toronto kind of Florida connection path is a little bit funky online. New York, you know, are they going to be kind of foot to the pedal during these online qualifiers? Are they going to have a little bit of sort of championship hangover? And that last match against Boston could be really big for both teams. In terms of whether or not they make it to winners. So I think Florida isn't going to necessarily fold during this cycle. Let's see if they're doing a good job in this current patch with the current spawns. You know, as a team that grinds out 2, 3, 5s, there might be 2 or 3 wins here, and then things get very interesting if Florida can get in that top 8 spot and make it to winners bracket. So let's see what they can do. All right, so that's the first 6 teams. Our next video, we will cover the top 6 from Major 1. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Again, I wanted to kind of do a quick hitter for the most part on these teams to kind of break down how they did in Major 1, things to work on in Major 2. Let me know if I missed anything on that front. As always, smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more, and we shall see you guys in the next one.